There'll be no honeymoon ending for you.
At the end of the day, we're still stuck down here with no lives and no family.
They give us half a life and think we won't fight for it.
What is up, everybody? Jeremy Eisenfire here, and welcome to the channel. With Severance getting closer and closer to the finale, we now approach our penultimate episode in Season 2, Episode 9, entitled The After Hours, as the synopsis reads that Mark and Devon team up with an ally, and Helly investigates further, which of course is most likely referring to the way that Episode 8 ended on the massive cliffhanger of Cobel, Mark, and Devon seemingly getting ready to team up. And with the limited preview that we have available for Episode 9, we also get a sense at exactly what Helly will be investigating. The episode preview starts off with a shot of Miss Cobel standing in what appears to be the birthing cabins we saw in Season 1, with a chilling piece of dialogue from her stating to Mark that there will be no honeymoon ending for him, which could potentially be Cobel trying to prepare Mark that this is not going to end well, and he and Gemma are not going to be able to just sail off into the sunset. Up until this point, one of the main objectives of both Innie and Outie Mark has been to rescue Gemma and get her away from Lumon and back into the real world. But seeing how closely Gemma seems to be tied to the Cold Harbor project, I get the feeling that Lumon is not going to be giving her up without a fight, and would likely even go so far as to kill Gemma before they allow her to escape. And even if by some miracle they do manage to get her away from Lumon, that by no means guarantees her safety or her freedom, especially considering all of the multiple times that Gemma has been severed and the numerous different personalities living inside of her, not to mention the other potential failsafes that Lumon might have implanted inside of her psyche. But if nothing else, I am very interested to see what kind of plan Mark, Devon, and Cobel come up with. Will they end up being able to work together peacefully, or will they end up butting heads along the way?
Do you know something about Gemma?
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you.
After all, even with the evidence that Cobel is now armed with, there's no way she's going to be able to strike a meaningful blow against Lumon by herself. Which also begs the question, just how exactly will Ragabi fit into all of this, and could she potentially end up working with the three of them as well? After all, Ragabi was very adamant in her belief that nobody should trust Cobel, with her going so far as to flee, leaving Mark alone during his reintegration before Devon even makes the call. Will the four of these characters be able to mend fences and work together towards a common goal? Will the enemy of our enemy be enough in this case? Or is the mistrust between them simply too large to overlook? But next, the preview continues with dialogue from Innie Dillon, as he states, at the end of the day, we're still stuck down here with no lives and no family of our own. Innie Dillon has had quite an interesting story in Season 2 thus far, with him now getting closer and closer to his Outie's wife and them developing feelings for one another. And this very dynamic has put Dillon at a bit of a crossroads this season, in terms of the need to stay loyal to Lumon in order to continue to see his Outie's family, or his want to help his friends and co-workers ultimately take Lumon down and rescue Gemma, and of course his desire to honor Irving's final wish and investigate the elevator. Whatever happens, I definitely get the feeling that Dillon's story is ultimately heading for one major decision, for him to choose whether or not to be loyal to Lumon and continue to see his Outie's family, or ultimately stay loyal to his co-workers, which will most likely end up being the most difficult decision of Innie Dillon's life. But next, the preview continues to heat up as we hear some interesting dialogue from Helly, stating that they gave us half a life and expect us not to fight for it.
They give us half a life and think we won't fight for it.
One thing we have noticed about Helly ever since the very beginning of the series is that she is indeed a fighter at heart, and the type of character to always take charge of her own destiny, a personality that always seems to clash with her Outie Helena, and something that Helena has proven to be a little bit envious of. The freedom and the love that Helly has is something that Helena wants for herself. And one thing the Episode 9 synopsis did state is that Helly will be investigating further. And with the Episode 9 preview continuing with Helly finding Irving's drawing in the break room of the mysterious elevator that leads to the testing room floor, one begins to wonder if her and Mark are going to seek it out. As we then see this interesting shot of what appears to be Helly walking down a mysterious hallway. Not the hallway leading to the elevator and the testing room floor, but it does appear to potentially be a hallway that we have yet to see on the show. Up until this point, we do know that Helly is also invested in finding this hallway and finding the testing room floor, as the first thing she asks Dylan when learning about the drawing is where exactly it is so she could see it. And given all of the bad blood between Helly and Helena, I wouldn't be surprised if Helly would do just about anything to strike a blow against Lumon at this point. And if rescuing Gemma and putting a dent into the Cold Harbor program does that, then that is something that she will most certainly be willing to risk. And with only 2 episodes left, and Lumon getting closer and closer to 100% complete on Cold Harbor, their chances of stopping it are getting slimmer by the day. And then of course there are the numerous different wildcards that are still at play as well, not the least of which being finding out who and what Audi Irving is really doing. We have been receiving subtle hints ever since the end of Season 1 that Audi Irving could potentially already be working against Lumon. And now it appears that even Lumon is becoming suspicious of Irving as well, as during the dinner at Bert and Field's house, they send Mr. Frolic, Drummond himself, into Irving's home to investigate, as Drummond uncovers all of the evidence that Irving has been gathering against Lumon, including information that he is gathering on the Severance program itself, and even going so far as to find specific names and addresses of Severance employees. And one thing we also get the sense is that Irving is not working alone, given all of the numerous different phone calls that he has been making at the mysterious phone booth. Which of course prompts the question, just who exactly is Irving working with, and could he potentially be already connected to Ragabi and some other kind of rebellion? One thing's for sure, it certainly seems like a bunch of storylines are finally coming to a head in the penultimate episode, the After Hours.
So listen, Mark has been reintegrating?
Ragabi.
Yeah.
And she hasn't killed him yet. Tell me everything.
And even the title in and of itself offers some very interesting clues as to some of the things we could maybe expect to see in the episode, as the After Hours also happens to be the title of a very famous Twilight Zone episode, which I get the feeling is no coincidence considering Ben Stiller has mentioned in the past that the Twilight Zone was a major inspiration behind Severance. And this particular episode follows a character called Marcia White, as she has a very intriguing and mysterious encounter at a department store.
Miss Marcia White on the 9th floor. Specialties department, looking for a gold thimble. This happens to be the Twilight Zone.
Which leads her to uncover a massive revelation that shatters her entire existence. Marcia initially enters the department store in search of a golden thimble for her mother, as a mysterious elevator operator guides her to the 9th floor. The floor itself seems to be incredibly empty, save for the one saleswoman and a single item on display, a golden thimble. And from there, things continue to get stranger and stranger for Marcia, as she notices a single scratch on the thimble, prompting her to go back and want to return it, only for the complaints department to reveal to her that there is no 9th floor in this building. And seeing as she was given no receipt for the item she purchased, she has no way to prove her story. From here, things only continue to get more and more strange for Marcia, as she recognizes a mannequin that bears a striking resemblance to the saleswoman that originally sold her the thimble, leading her to eventually discover the startling truth, that the entire 9th floor is all made up of animated mannequins, who are each pretending to be human. As the biggest revelation of all comes not long after, with Marcia herself realizing that she is indeed one of these mannequins, which is where we begin to see some of the similarities between this episode and Severance, as Severance also has a mysterious floor that is not supposed to be there, that being the testing room floor itself. And similar to Marcia on the 9th floor, Gemma herself is also put through a bizarre series of events on the testing room floor, with her not only being forced to face a multitude of different rooms, but also to have a new outfit for each one of these rooms as well, similar to dressing up a mannequin. But what exactly does all of this mean, and what will Gemma's ultimate fate be if Cold Harbor does indeed reach 100% completion? And if so, could it potentially mean the end of Gemma for good and a permanent transition into Miss Casey? Or will our protagonist, with some extra added help, manage to muster up one final blow against Lumon and stop Cold Harbor from happening, and hopefully save Gemma in the process? Or was Miss Cobel correct in telling Mark that there will be no honeymoon ending for him? There certainly appears to be a lot riding on these final 2 episodes, and it should be interesting to see how things ultimately play out. But definitely leave your thoughts and predictions down below. Do you think our innies will manage to rescue Gemma and stop Cold Harbor from happening? Or are we unfortunately heading for a more heartbreaking ending? And just what exactly will Miss Cobel do with her newfound evidence? Will she use it as leverage to try and gain her position back on the severed floor? Or will she finally sever ties with Lumon and the Eagans for good and seek revenge? The stage definitely seems to be set for a very explosive final 2 episodes, if nothing else. But that is going to do it for our Episode 9 preview, breakdown, and predictions. Up until this point, Season 2 has been filled with twists and turns and some interesting revelations, and of course, some very tragic losses. And I imagine there are still quite a few more big revelations in store for us on the horizon, like of course, what exactly is Cold Harbor. But if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like on your way out and consider subscribing to stay up to date on all of our upcoming Severance content. And don't forget to come and join us every Thursday night for our live Severance after show. And as always, keep those tinfoil hats on, folks, and I will see you on the next one.
They give us half a life and think we won't fight for it.
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you.